Hello there, this is Krystal, and you're listening to the Krystal Archive podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Krystal Archive podcast, episode number 31. I'm Mr. Krystal, and I'm glad to be back with you guys once again. Our last episode, episode number 30, was recorded back in December of 2012, so it's been about 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months since the last one. Sorry guys, I am trying to do better, getting the podcast out at a reasonable rate, in a reasonable amount of time. So, anyway. Let's do what we normally do, which is get started with the news since last time. Alright, so last time, as I said, recorded the podcast right before Christmas break, so a lot of things happened right there in January. So, I was planning to go to the Further Confusion 2013, where I was going to see Ayano and Fox Type, and before I went, some people were asking me questions about what furry cons are like, what to expect to see at those kind of things. And I did my best. It was an email originally, but I thought that the information was useful to everybody, so I decided to make a post about it and answered all the questions and more and described everything I knew about furry conventions and what goes on there and what you're likely to see and things that are sometimes done there and other times not. Depends on the convention, a specific con. This was my second year going to Further Confusion. I went last year in 2012. So anyway, that was a long post. Very informative, I hope. Next, there was a Star Fox cinematic that was planned to be released. Some people on Star Fox Online got access to or got in contact with the people who were planning to release the animation, and they had already talked about it, and I mentioned it on the site, and we managed to get the video up once the people working on it were able to post it. It's the work of Joe Morris and several others, and it's a quick video about 8 minutes long of a dogfight between Fox Falco, Peppy, and some other enemy that's not really identified in the film. But it's other than the character art, which is just kind of a little bit creepy, probably because of the attempt at realism. And whenever you do realism in 3D, what happens is as you get closer and closer to realism, you get deeper and deeper into what's called the Uncanny Valley, which makes things look strange because the brain is looking at the differences between real life and the animation rather than the similarities, as with standard cartoons. You see a nose that's just a circle and you're like, oh, that's a nose. But as you get closer and closer, you start to notice the weirdness. So anyway, but it was really good, well animated, so check that out if you haven't. I gave a nice introduction to the year 2013, and I mentioned that 2012 just wasn't a good year for me. Lots of bad things happened, including the site being hacked back almost a year ago now, actually. It was just over a year ago, right around the time of my birthday last year. So, been trying very hard to get the site back online. It's slow, but progress is being made. And right about then, January 8th, 2013 represents the 7th year the Krystal Archive has been online. So, happy birthday to me and to all of you. Happy anniversary. It's This is the longest single project I've ever had, and will continue to be the longest single project I've ever had. So, you know, unless something changes. Next, GreyFireFox released a video of his latest work with his Krystal rig. He's working very hard on version 1.5, this 3D animated rig for Maya, and he was doing some very in-depth stuff with lighting techniques. And I've been in contact with him ever since I found out he was doing this after posting the video. And he says that he's working hard on that model and rig, but he said it would be several months before he's ready to release it. And the reason why is he's planning to go all out and do a really fantastic video highlight reel that's going to show off everything, and it's going to be like professionally animated, like what he did with the previous one, but even more so. So it's probably going to have like a mini story, you know, like the Krystal and the Firefly skit thing that he made. It's I don't know how much of a story it'll have, but it'll definitely be like an actual cinematic, not just a series of videos, a series of shots of the model standing or animating, but actually she'll be doing something. What? I don't know. Didn't tell me. Next update we had was that I was saying, you know what? You know, like tomorrow I'm heading out to Further Confusion, the furry con that I'd been talking about. And, you know, last call for anybody who wanted to meet up. And I think I only got one response. That was Silfur Nakamura, which I eventually did meet up with him during the con. And I'll talk about that more later. So I had a great first day. We did a crazy amount of stuff. Again, I'll talk about that later. But I managed to make a post that night with some... Or actually the next day. I was taking pictures, but I did what I could to get some pictures and descriptions ready to go to talk about what was going on. I made a post on Saturday night with some of the photos I had taken, including Ayano cosplaying as Krystal, a Fox McCloud cosplayer we happen to run into who goes by FJ McCloud, and another guy who was wearing a blue Fox partial fursuit with goggles, headphones, and he was wearing the Star Fox competition weekend jacket, which is a kind of a collector's item in the Star Fox series. So that was pretty cool. So we did that. We did a bunch of other stuff at the con, which again I'll be talking about later, and then we wrapped it up and went home. Now, while there, one of the things I did was I talked with Silfur Nakamura and found out that he does his own podcast about furry, anime, and technology. And kind of spur of the moment, we decided to do a podcast together. And it was going to be his podcast, you know, and I was just going to be there co-hosting. But it ended up kind of turning into him just asking me about the Krystal Archive, rather than talking about... just whatever he wanted. He wanted to hear about me for my episode, for the episode that I was in, which turned out to be episode 9. So when I got back a couple days later, he went ahead and edited it really quick, and he posted it online, and I posted about it on the site, and it was pretty good. But I thought it could be better. So what I did was I took the audio and I spent like a whole weekend video editing it, and I put the audio track to all the photos and videos that I took at the con. Not all the videos that we have, just the ones that I personally had on my little iPhone that I had with me. I didn't have the professional video or still camera like the others did. So we'll get to that later. But anyway, I tried to give like a kind of like a pop-up video, like, you know, as we were talking, I would put pictures and details and textual descriptions in the video to describe, you know, more detail about what happened. And the video turned out really well, and so well, in fact, that I kind of want to try and do that sort of thing again with other videos. Not maybe the podcast eventually, but for now, not so much, because the podcast is mostly talking. But, you know, if there's some podcast where most of what I'll be talking about is something I can talk about visually, then maybe, you know, we'll see. But it was a really good experience doing that. So with the whole, experience of going to Further Confusion, I went back and, tried to get back ahead of news. And one of the things I've had for a while now is the videos that FoxType 1973 sent me on DVD a while ago, like over a year ago. And these are his videos of Ayano walking around the con, interacting with visitors and giving people hugs and just having a grand time, from which the video that we originally posted, the Friends Forever video, this is like all the rest of the footage put together, including 2 smaller videos that are kind of unrelated, but just kind of like their own little plot point. One is where she was having a small wardrobe malfunction with her, with the little connectors on the side of her loincloth, and the other where someone gave her a Subway sandwich so she can finally enjoy it. So those were good. I did find out that for whatever reason, the conversion process of getting the video off the DVD and putting it onto YouTube did something to the video conversion process so that the video is actually way lower quality than it should be. So what I'm going to try and do soon is go back and re-import the video and do the settings a little differently so it turns out nicer. And hopefully we'll get a better version up on YouTube shortly. The next thing, I was actually contacted by DarkFantasyTV to tell me that he was planning to do a video interview with Alesia Glidewell, who's the voice of Krystal in Star Fox Assault and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And I did not get that email. It went to my spam folder for some reason. But I was informed by FoxType in one of our conversations. So I did actually get it posted on the site before it happened. I think he was encouraging people to give him questions to ask, and a couple people did. And then a few days later, on March 25th, actually it was before that, but I eventually did post on March 25th that he had posted the video, and I posted it on the site. And it's a relatively short interview. I think Alesia Glidewell, for being an actor, both in front of the camera and off, is starting to become a little more camera shy. I'm not sure if it's just her time in her career or whatever, but she was reluctant to answer questions, and she didn't want to do any voice acting on her of her characters, which I don't blame her. It has been almost 10 years now, I think, since Star Fox Assault came out, and so she's, it's hard for anyone, especially an actor who's done so many different projects, to remember the voices so well. It's only when the actor becomes really, really widely known for that particular voice or character do they kind of start to be able to do it at any time. And you can cite examples like Leonard Nimoy from the original Star Trek. I'm sure that when he first did Star Trek, no one knew anything about him until much later, and now anytime anybody talks to him, they want to hear him do Spock. And also, this one I know for sure. As you probably remember, I'm a brony, and I watch My Little Pony all the time. Well, not all the time, but I'm a big fan. And I remember hearing some people very early on, like back in 2011, when it hadn't quite exploded in popularity yet. It was growing in popularity though. And people on the internet who typically either interview people who are voice actors, or people who are interviewing specifically for the My Little Pony fandom, ask these voice actors, particularly I heard one by Tara Strong, the voice of Twilight Sparkle, among many others. She was interviewing, and it wasn't until the end of the interview that the interviewer mentioned that, oh yeah, there's this thing called the Brony fandom, and have you heard of it? And she's like, no, I have no idea. What's that about? You know, which I thought was crazy because by then it was starting to become big, but even then she didn't hear about it. Of course, months later, Tara Strong has kind of become like the voice of the Brony fandom in a way. She's helps with fan projects. She's talks about being Twilight Sparkle on her Twitter, you know, like she pretends that she is sometimes. And so actors have to be like super known for a role in a big way before they really start to like latch on to that character, which most of the people who've done My Little Pony and Star Trek, again, kind of have because of the cult following that those fandoms have. So anyway, that's my explanation of it. I hear, and according to the interview, I think she said that Alesia is doing more work producing and less work acting these days. So good luck to her on those endeavors. And it was about that time, you know, end of March. I was like, oh yeah, I've got an April Fool's joke to do this year. What am I going to do this year? And I was really seriously racking my brain for something to do because, you know, there's all kinds of standard stuff, but I want to try and do something different, you know, something that you're really not expecting. And I think I've outdone myself this year because this year I managed to like totally fool a few people. And I'm only sad that not enough people saw it to be fooled, because it looks like not that many people saw it. But what I did this year was in the spirit of these other interviews with other voice actors and actresses, I thought, you know what? Wouldn't it be funny if I pretended that I was doing an interview, but I was doing an interview with the one version of Krystal that no one wants to do an interview with, and that is the one in Star Fox Command. You see, in Star Fox Command, all the characters spoke in like this gibberish speech that, you know, kind of sort of sounded like letters and words, but it was really just gibberish. And it could actually make gibberish based on your own voice. But so what I did was I was like, okay, so what I can do is I can find a way to generate this gibberish that kind of sounds a little bit like Krystal, and I'll interview her as if she's a real person. And so I did, and I made it into one of those video interviews, and I even put it up so that the thumbnail of the video looked like Krystal from Star Fox Adventures. So it would kind of throw you off. You think, oh, he made a video for the Estelle Ellis video interview, which is still coming, by the way. I'm still working on it. Well, I'm not working on it. I have the audio. I need to edit it. I've been kind of waiting for her to send me audio of herself doing the voice of Krystal, but I've already emailed her like twice asking for it, and she's kind of not answered. So I think she's just like not going to do it. So I'm probably going to just edit it the way it is and release it anyway, because it's been on my computer too long. You guys need to hear it. But anyway, so other than the fact that no one saw it, and the fact that it's, you know, you can never be as surprising as your first year's April Fool's joke, like the very first one where I turned the Krystal Archive into the Renamon Archive for a day. Other than that, I'd say that this is my most successful April Fool's Day joke. So if you haven't seen it already, please do. It's the first couple of seconds or the first couple of seconds of the interview are like you'll lose it. If you don't see it coming, you'll lose it. So finally, I made a couple of small updates when some people were actually watching the April Fool's joke, and they're like, "Hey, what's that awesome video or awesome music that you put in the front of your podcast and at the end, you know, the intro and outro podcast music?" And I was like, "Oh, well, it's on the site under Krystal Music." It turns out it wasn't. The links were bad, so I fixed those, and I added one more piece of Krystal music that I had. It slipped my mind, you know, that it was actually Krystal related, but the person who commented to me was actually right. The music that plays when Krystal gets tossed into the crystal at the beginning of Star Fox Adventures, that definitely should be considered Krystal music. So I put that up there too. And I lastly mentioned that I'd be doing a podcast this weekend, and here I am, Saturday afternoon, working on this podcast. So with that, that takes care of all of the news that I posted since last time. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about further confusion. Specifically, I want to talk about what happened there, what we're planning to do with that stuff. So first of all, there's a couple of events. I get there Friday morning. I drove there. You know, it's in San Jose, and I'm in Sacramento, so it's about 2-hour drive, 2.5 hours. And apart, check in my hotel and all that good stuff. And then I walked on over to the convention center, where I met up with Fox Type, and I think I pretty much headed directly into the dealer's den, because I heard that Krystal would be there, Ayano dressed as Krystal, helping to sell anime and manga and art books with her friend. I'm losing the name. What's the name? The name is... Drat. It's a... Well, his tag is Stinkin'. What does he go by? Hang on, I'm going to look it up right now. It's not Android. Okay. Yes. Ken Singsho. A friend of Ayano from Japan. He and several other artists were together selling books, and Krystal was kind of standing around there greeting customers and, you know, getting her picture taken with everybody. And we, you know, I went up and, you know, said hello, and I knew she didn't speak English, so, you know, I just kind of waved and said hello, you know, hi, and boy, it was really weird, you know, because seeing a picture of Ayano is different than seeing the suit up close. It's not something I can explain, but it was definitely a different feeling. Anyway, so we took photos and chatted with Ken Singsho briefly, and at some point after that, we got him to tell Ayano that we wanted her to go out to the to walk with us out to a big open area where there's some green paint on the walls, hoping we could do some like green screen effect with the walls, which worked a little bit. And she did a bunch of poses for us. Some of the video in the Silfur Nakamura podcast showed what I got there. And it was at that point that Silfur Nakamura came in. He called my real name, and he introduced himself, and, you know, it's like, hey, how's it going? And he started taking photos and videos of Ayano too. And then it was at that point that I was like, wait a minute, you know my real name. And he's like, yeah. And the reason I wanted to use my real name, or your real name, so that you knew that I've been watching the Krystal Archive for a long time, because I used to use my real name on the Krystal Archive. So that was cool. And then when she was done, when we were done taking photos, we walked her back to the dealer's room. And she, as we mentioned on the podcast, she can't really see very well, and I was like going pretty fast, but she was like just kind of like ambling slowly, and I was like, oh, you know, she can't see. And Fox Type and Silfur were were videotaping this whole walking process, like her walking through the con and stuff. So I decided to lead her along by grabbing her hand and leading her, right? And that's when Fox Type yelled out "Lucky" in my general direction. You know, it's embarrassing. You're gonna get to see it too. We're gonna put the video up, and I'm sure he's gonna make a lot of fun of me when he puts that video together. But, you know, whatever. Oh, and you'll get to see my face, and probably me blushing. I'm blushing right now, thinking about it, actually. Anyway, So we did that, brought her back to the dealer's room, and then she's like starting to overheat because she's in that suit, and it's already kind of warm in there because there's like so many people in there, and it's a small enclosed room. But it was even worse in that about that time the air conditioning cut off, and so it was rising to like 75, 80, 90 degrees in there, and she was starting to overheat, and so actually she got taken to the hotel room so she could change and cool off. So after that, you know, I went to do a bunch of I went to see a few little talks and see all the dealers, what they were selling, and I made an honest effort to try and talk to everybody this year, or most of them. I talked to almost every dealer, because last year I was kind of too afraid to talk to anybody, and I had a really miserable experience because of it. Well, this year talking to everybody really made it much nicer, and meeting Ayano, of course, that too was really cool. And I met a few interesting people. I met one person who does comics, and she actually is located in Sacramento, and she and one of her associates invited me to the Sacramento fur meet, which I didn't know there was one. Apparently there is, and I haven't gone to it yet, but you know, I'm still thinking about it. This also was the person who happened to create the imagery for the front and back covers of the convention book that they give to everyone who signs up to go to the convention. Let's see, what other adventures? I don't remember what day it was, but I went to see a talk, and it was about the nature of dealing with a society in which some animals would be considered prey and some would be considered predators, and how they would deal with that societally when one species, one group of people, in quotes, would be, you know, would have the instincts to attack and eat the others. And I was hoping it would be like a more philosophical thing, but it kind of turned into a question and answer thing where everybody was just stating their opinions. I was kind of hoping there'd be some serious research, or as serious as it could get, you know, a lecture. I was kind of expecting a lecture, and it turned out to be just like everybody spouting their opinions. I was kind of hoping for more in-depth thought. But the more interesting thing that happened in that one instance was that I got there before it started and sat down, and while it was going on, maybe 5 minutes in, someone else came in and sat down. There was already many other people, at least 20 or 30 people in there, but one person came in late, and this person was significant because she was one of my coworkers at work. And I was kind of surprised and kind of not, because I'd say that if there was anyone at our work that I would spot at a furry convention, it would probably be her. But at the same time, I really wasn't expecting to see anybody. So I kind of stared at her for a while. And at one point, she turned around, noticed me, waved, and then turned. And I just kind of gave her a stare, like not angry or mad, but kind of serious, you know. And I was trying to, with just my eyes, say, "Don't ever tell anybody at work that I'm here," you know. And that was kind of weird. Yeah, definitely weird. But the bad thing was, she got up and left. She was bored. She got bored, I guess, and she got up and left before I did. Halfway through the talk, and I didn't follow her because I was like, I was going to see if this thing was actually going to, you know, do well. So she left, and once I decided to leave, which I didn't stay for the whole thing, it really did bore me. I went looking everywhere for her, and I couldn't find her because I wanted to, you know, go and talk and make sure that, you know, this thing was going to stay on the down low as far as real life is concerned, and well, I couldn't find her. So that became kind of a secondary goal throughout the rest of the convention, was trying to find her. So the other thing, so that was probably all of Friday. On Saturday, we one of the first things that happened, the big thing at the con, was the fur parade. This huge group of fursuiters, hundreds, well over 200, I'm sure. I forget how many exactly, but there were lots of fursuiters and cosplayers in there. And they all walked through, and that's where we spotted the Fox McCloud cosplayer. And so when they're done with the parade, they all end up back where they started in the giant stage room. And I got together with Silfur Nakamura, who was still in suit at the time, and Fox Type 1973 and me. We went in there, and as soon as we got in position, so that as soon as they were done with this giant photo shoot they do of all the fursuiters all at once from a big crane up in the ceiling, we got in position so that we could grab a hold of the Fox cosplayer and the Ayano cosplayer at once, so we could, do a video and pictures of them together. It's perfect, right? And so Fox Type went to go get Ayano, and somehow the Fox McCloud did not know about the Krystal. He hadn't seen her, didn't know about her. So I went and grabbed him, and I was like, "Excuse me." And I, talked, towards where his ear would have been. I was like, "Excuse me, would you mind coming over here and taking a picture with us?" And he's like, nods, And I says, "If you could, take a picture with Krystal over there." And he kind of jolted up a little bit, and he started looking around, and he looked behind him, and he saw Krystal standing there, and he just ran at her with open arms, give her a giant hug, And they proceeded to do a bunch of poses together. Gave each other a long hug. I mean, a long hug. And I found out later, because I talked to the cosplayer of Fox, who goes by FJ McCloud, online. I talked to him, and we talked about what we did and all that. And he goes to a lot of cons as Fox McCloud, and he said that meeting Ayano was like the best part of his entire convention, and it like made it for him, and it made it like one of the best conventions he's ever been to, just because of that. So one of the things we wanted to do with him was get him in a relatively empty area, which in our case was just the giant empty space made up of the showroom floor. And we were going to take a video of Ayano doing some pose from Adventures, and we were trying to figure out like what would be a good pose that she could do that wouldn't be too taxing on her, And I came up with, whenever you obtain a new item in the Star Fox Adventures, they reach down, grab it from a certain camera angle, and then in another camera angle, they lift it up above their heads and then spinning above their heads. And we thought, that's perfect. All we have to do is bend down and stand up in time and stuff. And so what I did was, and several of Ayano's friends happened to show up about that time, and one of them could speak Japanese, and so and English, and so it's like, tell her that we want to do a scene with her, and I'll show you what to do. And I demonstrated what I wanted to do, and the different camera angles we would do, and she's like, okay, and she did it, and we got a video, like 2 videos of her doing it from 2 different camera angles. Kind of didn't work out exactly how we wanted, but you'll see whenever I get the actual video edited. And then when we were done with that, Ayano, or not Ayano, the Fox McCloud cosplayer is like, he tapped me on the shoulder, and he indicated with hand signs that he wanted to do the scene too. I was like, great. So we recorded him picking up an item and holding it over his head. So what we're going to do is we're going to track the camera, figure out where the camera is in space, and then with 3D program I'm going to put a simulated 3D version of the con book, the magazine that they give you, floating over their heads and spinning. And I've actually already done this. I actually did do this one weekend just to make sure I could do it, and I did, and it looks fantastic, but I need to do it again because I had the wrong format video, and I exported it incorrectly. But more importantly, one of the tracking points, the way the 3D tracking works, actually accidentally got attached to one of her fingers. So when she finished lifting up the book in the air, what would happen was she moved her, she had her fingers like just out, and then when she got to the top of the arc of holding it up, she outstretched her fingers even further. And what that did was that moved the camera tracking, so it made the camera tracking think that the camera zoomed in really fast and then zoomed back out. And so I'm gonna have to redo it, unfortunately. If I had done it, if I had done other than that, like, we could have released it. It was pretty much spot on. So I'm gonna have to redo that, and I'm gonna have to redo it, and I'm gonna have to do it again with Fox McCloud. But don't worry, I know how to do it now, so it shouldn't take that long. It's just a matter of finding the time to actually do it. It probably would take about a day of work in the 3D program. I use Blender, by the way. It turns out they have a free 3D tracking system built in now, which is great. It's relatively new, so it's perfect. Oh, one other thing. We did run into I ran into a couple other cosplayers that were interesting. One guy was dressed up as a demon, I think. He was called like a demon. He had this weird face thing, a thing on his face where it was electronic device attached to his face, and then his entire head and face was covered with a black material. So it looked like his whole head was just black colored, right? And what it did was the electronic device turned on a series of LEDs in front of his face in time with his voice and in time with his eyes. So from your perspective, it would look like he was blinking his eyes and moving his mouth and looking around, and it also voice changed his voice. So he actually sounded crazy, like a deep voiced demon character. And there was a bunch of other lighting effects on the rest of his costume. Really cool effects. The other guy, I met a guy who he says his name is, he goes by Malako, I believe it's pronounced. He was dressed up as a blue fox character with eye goggles, and it was a partial fursuit, so the head, hands, and a tail, I think. Yeah, definitely a tail. And he was wearing the Star Fox Super Weekend jacket. Or Super Weekend competition jacket, which is a big collector's item in the Star Fox series. So anyway, long story short, we spent a bunch of more time with Ayano. She did her walking around again the next day and the day after that. So we got even more video of her and more pictures, and I got to see a ton of stuff. I got to go to the Brony talk there, which was nowhere near as good as last year's, so I was kind of disappointed there. But other than that, it was a pretty cool time. I enjoyed myself. I talked to a lot of people, and at the very end, like right at the end when I was about to leave and go home on Sunday night, I ran into my coworker. And I was like, "Hey, saw you back there. Don't suppose you'd keep this all a secret?" She's like, "Yep, no problem. I understand. This is, a secret thing. I actually kept it a secret too, but turns out some of my coworkers found out about it accidentally." And I was like, "Really? I didn't hear about this." And she's like, "Yeah, that was a long time ago." So anyway, cool. And I went home, and so now Fox Type is still in the process of editing video. And he's also getting me full quality video of everything he's ever recorded. He's gonna buy a hard drive and ship it to me, so I'm gonna get all that, and hopefully we can get the new videos for this year's con up and online within a few days, weeks, and so on. We'll see, and that's kind of based on the thing I want to talk about next, which is my current life situation. Now, you've probably all noticed that I've done, ever since the Further Confusion convention, I've had very few posts on the site, and there's very good reason for that. It was about that time that I was starting to experience pain in my hands again, in my wrists. And because I work as a programmer and we sometimes work long hours, I was starting to get some real pain, sort of pain, but more like numbness and weird feeling in my outer fingers and sometimes my wrist. And sometimes it's unbearable, and I have to limit how much I type and use the computer, which kills me because I love to use the computer. I love to work on these things, and I feel just bored when I'm not creating things or working on things. It's not enough for me to just sit there and watch TV anymore. I can't do it. I have to be making something or learning something. So this mild carpal tunnel that I have now is affecting me in terms of how much I can type and work each day, especially after a full day's work at the game company I'm at. So it's kind of painful. It's kind of painful for me to not be able to update as much as I want. Combined with, the reason why it's flared up so greatly is because after work for the last few weeks before this happened, I had been working real hard on updating my real life website, my website for me personally, in preparation for an eventual goal of moving on to another company. And I wanted to have a portfolio out there and ready to go. And I'm happy to report that that portfolio is online, working, looks great. But it came at the cost of me working like 4 or 5 hours every night for 2 weeks after, 8 hours of programming. Well, that just killed my wrists. And so I actually went to the doctor and they said, yeah, you need to wear wrist guards now. And, take some medicine and do some stretches and stuff. And so I have, and it's gotten a little better. But I've had to seriously reduce the amount of programming I do after work. So it may be that my work with the Krystal Archive is going to be kind of a weekend-only thing. And that's something we're going to have to address as far as getting volunteers to help. I'm trying to find ways in which we can do the Krystal Archive with less work for me and more opportunities for you guys to volunteer if you so choose. And I'm sorry I haven't been the most I haven't been keeping up the most up to date on that, because I know there are those of you who want to and have volunteered, and I just haven't gotten back to you yet because I haven't had a chance to answer your emails, which again takes typing and it's hard on me. So that leads me into another thing. I was planning on leaving my job to work somewhere else later, like months from now. But due to some recent changes within the company, and for those of you who don't know, I work at a video game company. Specifically, I work for EA, which has gotten a really bad rap lately. But we're like not even remotely associated with the groups that have had such problems lately, like the SimCity stuff. No, but there has been a bunch of craziness been happening at the company. For instance, a couple of days ago or weeks ago, the CEO of EA stepped down, and that originally I thought wasn't going to have any real effect on us as a game studio, but I was wrong. We're starting to see these long-term effects kind of trickle down, and it's starting to change a lot of what we have had, what we've done at the company, and there are some choices being made that I don't agree with. Not at a product level. It doesn't have to do with like what products we're making or how we're making them, or what products we're making or how we're marketing them or whatever. This has purely to do with how we're making the product. They're making some choices that I don't personally agree with, and if I continue to work there, I'm going to become more and more unhappy due to my beliefs about how software should be built, as well as my long-term trust in their abilities and their ability to make, long-term good decisions. I'm not sure. Of course, I haven't been in the industry that long. They could be totally right and I could be totally wrong. But regardless, I'm going to get less and less happy the longer I stay there, due to the current nature of the work environment and certain decisions that are being made. So with that, I'm actually spending a lot of time, starting this weekend, looking for another job. And I have a fair amount of confidence I should be able to find a job pretty quickly. I have a whole list of people to contact who want to hear from me as soon as I'm available. So I don't have much fear in that. But it does mean that this is now another thing that's going to get in the way of me updating the Krystal Archive. Unfortunately, it's yet another thing that's going to take time, is getting another job, and if I have to move, the moving, all that. You may remember that 2 years ago, when I got my current job, was when I started having less time to update the Krystal Archive, because I was no longer just a guy in school or a guy looking for a job. I was a guy with a serious job in a completely unrelated, unfamiliar town halfway across the country. So I am stubborn and I don't give up, so I'm keeping the Krystal Archive alive, no problem, and I'm always looking for opportunities and ways we can help each other keep the site going, and hopefully we can get volunteers to help. I've got a couple ideas on that, but just know that there's some serious real life stuff that's getting in the way, and I apologize for that. I'm doing what I can to mitigate it, but there's so much I have to do. It's depressing, actually. So much. I mean, it's good that I have stuff to do, but man, I wish I could have like half of the stuff that I need to do. So with that, let's talk about what I want to do with the long-term future of the Krystal Archive website. Now, as you know, we got hacked back in March 2012, and I've been slowly restoring the site, and that kind of came to a conclusion. I didn't really, after finishing putting the audio and video back online, I did try and do some more stuff. I actually got started getting the 3D section back online, but then it's kind of stalled because of the various things in real life. But the one thing that I'd known for the longest time is going to take the most amount of time, it always has taken the most amount of time, is managing the huge amounts of Krystal fan art, fan films, fan fictions, all the fan works. It's so hard to keep track, especially the fan art, but to a lesser degree the videos and the fan fiction. There's just there is a way for me to keep up with it. I could do it, but it would take like an hour every day, and I don't have it in me. I wish I did, like I used to, but and plus we haven't updated them. We haven't updated lists in like over a year, so there's thousands and thousands of new pieces of art that have to be found, analyzed, commented on, converted into my system, use all these scripts that I wrote, which were great scripts and they helped a lot, but man, there's just gotta be an easier way to deal with all these fan arts. And then I stumbled upon what I think might be the solution. A solution that will reduce the amount of work I have to do, while at the same time providing an excellent, easy to use way for all of you to help me keep the list up to date. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, but the DeviantArt has systems for keeping track of large amounts of art. It's called groups. You can make a group for anything, and I already have made a group. I've made the official Krystal Archive group, and it's my hope that we can use their systems to create lists of all clean Krystal fan art that we can find on DeviantArt, and separate it into the same categories as before. So we're going to have traditional art, rendered art, and for since you can't control it the same way I control it, but we can achieve the same results. So instead of having I'll make the featured section, the favorite section, if you will, for the group, be those that were originally those that were like personal favorites. So you will still get to have like all the complete lists, and we'll have the lists of the best. And also, because it's a community-driven site, I can have you guys be either partially or fully in charge of whole sets of things. You can help find the art, put it in the lists, and approve them. And it's just a matter of me helping and administrating that whole thing. And we can actually do the same thing with fan films on YouTube. YouTube has playlists, and it would not be very hard at all to build a playlist that's specific to different types of fan films, and have them featured on the Krystal Archive YouTube page, and basically offloading the work of keeping track of these massive lists of things, which I have historically been just doing manually through a series of HTML tools I wrote. Instead, offload that into the systems that are designed to do that exact sort of thing. There's only one hitch I've found so far in my research of this, and that is that you can't do mass operations on DeviantArt. There's no way to say, here's a list of 500 pieces of fan art, put them in this folder. There may actually be a way to do it, and I'm going to investigate it, but it's going to require some hacking. I might actually hire a hacker to figure out the API so we can have some tools. But once we get it up and running, it should be easy to deal with, because then we're only adding 1 or 2 Krystal fan arts as we find them, rather than trying to deal with the massive numbers all at once. So I'm going to look into that. So keep an eye out for that. The Krystal Archive group is already there. You can join it if you feel like it. The group name goes by, let me look it up for us real quick. The group is called KrystalArchive.deviantart.com. It's got no images in it. It's got one member, me, and one watcher, also me. You can go ahead and start watching it. I put a basic info there, and hopefully we'll figure out a way to get the art in there in mass. We can and we can go ahead and start accepting things too. To keep track of things, I'm probably going to make a separate folder for like new additions, and then we can in one fell swoop kind of move all of the new submissions into the main lists every so often. So if you want to join that, feel free. If you want to help out with that, please contact me either via DeviantArt or my email, mrkrystal@gmail.com. I look forward to trying that out. YouTube actually would be much easier. There are less fan films, and and that's going to make it a lot easier. But also, I'm more familiar with their interface for adding things to playlists. Okay, so that's all the news and real life stuff that I had. Let's see, this podcast, how long is it so far? It says here I've been talking for almost an hour, so that's about what I expected. I kind of expected it to be a relatively short podcast this time, but it turns out there was a lot to talk about as far as the conventions, so there you go. I do have a couple of podcast questions, and these are really good questions. I want to answer them. I'm enthusiastic about answering them. One of them was originally from the guy who was asking me about the fur conventions. So we get a little more detail there. So let me start with this one. So first off is DarkFantasyTV, who writes, First off, it was great to see a new podcast up, and looking forward to many more in the future. Hopefully more recently. But I understand how busy your work can be. Anyway, I recently noticed that your most recent podcasts, you stopped adding background music to them. And I was wondering why this was. If it's because of technical reasons or you just want to add it anymore, that's fair enough. But I have to say, I think the background music really makes the podcast better and adds to the texture that we listeners are actually listening to, if you know what I mean. I personally would love to have it back on the podcast, and hey, that's just what I think. What do you think? Oh, and I would like to thank you for your tireless and hard work in restoring the Krystal Archive back to its top form with awesome improvements. I think I can speak for all the KA viewers when I say we really appreciate it. Smiley face. Well, it's an excellent question. The main reason why there's no more background music on the podcast is because it takes time. You see, the different pieces of music I have different levels of loudness, and so I have to make sure each one is adjusted down so it's not too loud so that you can't hear what I'm saying, but also not too soft so that you can't hear it at all. Then a lot of it loops, so I have to make sure that the loops match up end to end. And finally, for a 1 hour podcast, I really only have like 20 minutes of music. So I have to loop it over and over again, and it's kind of repetitive. One of the things I've been meaning to do for a long time is to get the songs that I have, extend them, make sure they are all the same loudness, and then that way I'll have one song that I can use for every podcast as background music. I won't have to worry about adjusting or looping them. It'll already be done. But unfortunately, I haven't gotten around to it. I'd also really like to get more music, but I don't have a lot to choose from with just Adventures, Assault, and Brawl to get Krystal music from. I expand to general Star Fox music where I can, but the tunes don't fit that well as background music, or like orchestral themes that have wildly different loudnesses in the same song, or even Krystal's jazzy theme because it implies a specific type of conversation. Who wants to hear the Krystal's theme while hearing about technical comments on website development? Not this guy, okay? All right. So, next one, and this is the one about fur cons in depth. Okay, Fox McCloud 2 writes, I have a quick question about furry cons. Why don't people who dress in fursuits talk? I responded quickly with, actually, some do, and I linked to a video of a guy doing just that. He's in a fox costume and he's talking, just talking normally. And in fact, he was ordering a meal. His friends forced him to order a meal at a fast food restaurant while wearing the fursuit. But there are numerous examples, and here's what I say. I say, first of all, historically, fursuiting was about portraying a specific character, and it was thought that using your real voice would ruin that character, because now instead of it being the character, it was a muffled guy in a suit of a character. Imagine hearing the muffled voice of a 30-year-old man when you asked Minnie Mouse a question at Disney World. It would have ruined the magic, especially for children. Instead, the suitors preferred to use large, cartoonish body motions to speak their intent or expression through body language. 2. Fursuits were once very primitive. They were large masks with eye holes and usually nothing else in the way of holes for sounds to escape. It would make their voice at best muffled. And you might have also had to deal with the fact that the fursuiter was pantingly out of breath due to the heat. But now we have fursuit heads with movable jaws, and that has inspired those suitors to speak casually while suiting. Some suitors still don't speak while they are in fursuit, but that is changing quickly. In fact, I'd say that about 10 to 20% of fursuiters have no problem talking while in fursuit, at least at furry conventions. I don't know how they act when interacting with the general public. I also ran into some suitors with voice changers so that they could speak, but it amplified their voice and made it sound different too. There were others who had a sound effect implemented as part of their costumes, like a hawk-based fursuit I saw this year that would emit a hawk's screech whenever he extended the wings. Now, I took some photos of a rainbow dash at this year's convention, and I mentioned that the rainbow dash I saw at Further Confusion was actually a dude, and he was talking casually about the fursuit itself as he was posing for pictures with everybody. But, on the other hand, the derpy I met said absolutely nothing. So it all just depends on what they want to do and their personality. And don't forget, and this is not in the email, but don't forget that a lot of these characters, a lot of these fursuiters are not, because the furry fandom is a significant percentage of it is not a fandom of specific characters in popular culture, but characters they made themselves. Their fursuit represents themselves, in which case it's an entirely personal decision about whether or not they want their character to talk. Anyway, getting back on track, Ayano, as Krystal, never said anything except directly to Ken Singsho when he was standing right next to her. Ken tells me that Ayano's day job is actually being a mascot at an amusement park, I believe. So she has quite a bit of experience acting out the character's part in suit. Incidentally, it is considered, or at least it was considered a few years ago when I learned this, that it is very rude to ask a fursuiter if they are really a guy or a girl, regardless of what gender the character is. This goes back to the whole being the character issue. Unless the suitor tells you it's okay to ask questions about the suit itself, or suiting in general, it's polite to act as if you're speaking to the fictional character themselves, not to the person inside. So, a couple of great questions. If you have any questions of your own, comments, volunteer to help. Though I can't guarantee how quickly I'll respond. I've got hundreds of emails to respond to. I'm so sorry, guys. This carpal tunnel, it's slowing me down like crazy. But anyway, if you do, please don't hesitate to email me at mrkrystal@gmail.com. Comment on the YouTube video where this will be uploaded. I'm also going to upload it to the site as regular podcast, and you can make comments on the site. Just let me know how you're feeling. I want to hear from you guys. It's been a long time, and I haven't really interacted with anybody in any significant amount since the convention, due to all the craziness. So with that said, I'm Mr. Krystal. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, episode number 31, and hopefully we'll have 32 out much quicker than last time. So until next time, guys, we'll see ya, and be sure to check the site for the latest updates. Later, guys.